never coming down. Bitch, you ain't no Barbie. I see you work at Arby's. Never to supersize. Hurry up, I'm starving. Gnarly, radical. On the block, I'm magical. See me at your college campus, baggy full of Adderalls. Call me if you need a fix. Call me if you need a boost. See them other chicken heads, they don't ever leave the coop. I'm in the coop cruising. I got the stolen plates, serving all the fiends over there by the Golden Gate. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. The basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. The basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. I put that on my partner, I put that on my family. Oakland City represent, address me as your majesty. Yeah, you can kiss the ring, but you can never touch the crown. I spoke a million swisher once, and I ain't never coming down.
Do you agree that there's no such thing as racism, sexism, homophobism, Islamophobism, deadbeat dadism, white supremacism, and all the other isms? Destiny, that's a woman's name. You were raised by your daddy and mama. That makes you half man and half woman. You are a beta. You're not a real man, beta. I just have one question for you, beta. There's just one thing I want to know. Destiny, do you love all people? Do you really love the blacks? Destiny, do you love black people? Why can't you just answer the question? Destiny, do you love all people?
System, the company store, the paradigm of absolute control. And that's why we're just out here doing simple things, pointing out that we're meant to be in nature and be natural. And this is where we find the source that God made to transcend the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murderers scum. They're on giant death factories keeping babies alive. They're selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I go out and face these scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin and they run around screaming, we love Satan, we wanna eat babies. I have them on video. Hillary's in the creepy, weird, sick stuff, man. She sleeps in the same room with that creepy, weird woman whose mother wears a hood over her head. What the hell? That woman number one is ugly. Imagine how bad she smells, man. I'm told her and Obama just stink. Obama and Hillary both smell like sulfur. Literal vampire pot and the goblins are hobbling round coming after us. My spirit gets close to that evil and I feel it go. itself rising up against us. Millions of pointed people of the very worst type, and I'm so pissed. We're gonna stab your daughter at the mall. We're gonna stab your wife, your son. We're gonna stab you with a butcher knife, and then the police chief is gonna say, we love our Somalis, we love our Muslims. Oh, they're so good, oh, they're so sweet.
I was watching Fox News as I worked out this morning.
Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Just watching my algorithms get crushed. I guess I did something to piss off the Instagram gods, so hopefully you're seeing this stuff anyway. We'll do what we can.
This is my message to the Instagram gods, crushing Don Jr.'s algorithm. Yeah, you've been caught. You think this actual 10-second clip of him attempting to face the camera toward him is worth only 250,000 views? How dare you? How dare you? I keep pictures of Don Jr. above my bed, and now every night I fall asleep with him in my head. I dream he takes me to the skate park and teaches me how to ride. I dream he let me do the monkey bars while holding on to my side. I dream that fell off my skateboard and he gave me a bandage. I dreamed I was hungry and he made me a sandwich. I dreamed we stayed up all night learning TikTok dances with Ron DeSantis. I dreamed we hunted Hunter Biden and shoved him in a locker. Asked him how it felt to just be known for his famous father. Isn't it pathetic? Oh, isn't it a shame to have no remnant of identity outside your father's name? When you look down at your hands, uncalloused and cold, can't you see all that you hold has been handed to you? And does that make you feel small, Hunter? Do you ever look back at your life and sob? 38 years in your younger sister's shadow, crying, Daddy, please love me. Daddy, please see me. Dad, won't you love me? Dad, can't you see me? Daddy, please love me. Daddy, please see me. Dad, won't you love me? Dad, can't you see me? We pulled him out of the locker and we gave him a swirly. My alarm went off and then I voted early, so should you.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pull-out game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word. Beat it up, N-word, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top, I wanna ride. I do a kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P word is wet, come take a dive. It continues along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar.
as your dreams go down the drain. Come on, wagey, join the crew. Don't you want your wages too? And if the boss man makes you blue, you deserve it, you're a screw. Killing comes round after ages. You can come collect your wages. Throw your bodies out your rages. Then get back to your cages.
Yeah, let's go chat. How's it going? Coming up on a good weekend. It's been a while since the Big Bird broadcast, but we here for it. I got coffee. I got energy. Let's fucking go. Yeah. The song never fails to get me amped up. We covering all sorts of crazy news today. It's gonna be a good one. Finally got to see some live music. Damn. Need to go to a concert. Yeah, this video is straight fire. Goes so hard. All right. Well, that was Party Boy 69. I'm just gonna shut off this speaker real quick. So yeah, how's it going? We are up early here in Montreal. It is no longer a blizzard outside. I kid you not. We had a full-on blizzard, massive snow. In fucking end of April, heading into May. What is it? April showers, May flowers, and we're getting April snow. May won't grow. I don't know. It's not good. Let's say it's not good. So yeah, we're gonna check out the news. The big topic for today is, of course, the Johnny Depp testimony. I'm just gonna put on some background music. Oh my god. Yeah, get some background music. We're going to cover the Johnny Depp trial because that's pretty fascinating stuff. And we got some other stuff lined up with, there's updates in the war in Ukraine, a couple interesting pieces of info there. But the real arc that's been passing of late is Libs of TikTok. I don't know if you know anything about this arc, but it seems kind of serious. It went from like the outskirts of TikTok to mainstream news like that. Of course, Tucker Carlson's at the center of it. And yeah, we're going to look into that. We're going to see what's going on. It seems pretty shifty, pretty sussy. So let's go check that out. I already have some testimony lined up from the Johnny Depp thing. So we're going to get some like context, find out what exactly this is about. If I understand, it's a defamation case. I've heard a bit of dribs and drabs, but I don't know the full story. And we got Law and Crime Network that's on it, so they're a really good source. I really trust them. So that'll be good stuff to watch. So let's get into it, everybody. Let's go. Okay, I might wanna. Let's see here. Let's pause that for a bit.
Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily. It's Johnny Depp versus Amber
Here we go.
Heard.
She called him an old fat man.
It's insane.
Your excuse, ma'am. You can have your excuse.
The highlights of week one's multi-million-dollar defamation suit.
Go.
Plus, Jennifer and James Crumbly petitioned the court for a lower bond. But are they
we'll
still
skip on
considered
that.
a flight risk? And a Florida defendant is given a chance to speak.
This was a personal
That's the Johnny Depp.
catastrophe
The-
in everybody's life and my
so we're
family,
skipping
including
all
myself.
the way to here. Okay, let's find out what this is all about. What's
Welcome
going on
back.
here?
In week one of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, we've heard shocking allegations, seen witnesses break down, and others dismiss for watching media coverage of the trial. The lawsuit stems from a 2018 Washington Post article written by Heard. While Depp's name was not mentioned in the piece, Heard alleges she is a victim of domestic abuse. Depp argues he lost roles in both the
Right.
Harry Potter and Pirates of the
She didn't name him, but like everyone knows they're together, and then she wrote an op-ed about domestic abuse. It's like, yeah, that's pretty already off to a good start.
Caribbean franchises because of Heard's accusations. After that, Depp filed a defamation suit against Heard to the tune of $50 million. Heard countersued for $100 million. The case began on Monday of this week, where a jury of 7 jurors and 4 alternates were seated after only 1 day. On
Oh,
Tuesday, opening
man.
statements were presented, revealing even more striking accusations.
It's gonna be intense to watch this, just because they're actors, right? Like they're able. I don't know. This is talk about a parasocial relationship. The way that people react to like celebrities and think they know them and stuff, like that's been going on for so long already.
Mr. Depp would often retreat into bathrooms, lock the doors, wait out Ms. Heard's aggression. But his leaving just provoked her more. You're going to hear evidence that when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard traveled together, his team routinely had to book an extra room for him so that he had somewhere to go when Ms. Heard became enraged.
He rips off her nightgown. He has her jammed up against a bar. He has hurled bottles and bottles at her. He has dragged her across the floor on the broken bottles and the liquor. He has punched her. He has kicked her. He tells her he's going to kill her. He hates her. He's pounding at her, pounding her. And then he penetrates her with a liquor bottle.
Wait, what?
That's the Johnny Depp that you're going to hear about in this case.
And just to be clear, like, this is going to be something that we really want to do, but don't read their faces. Don't think you know what's going on in their heads. Like, resist the fucking urge to look at their face and see them shaking their head and be like, yeah, I know exactly what's going on. You don't.
Johnny Depp's sister was the first witness called to the stand. She told jurors about the start and end of Depp's relationship with Heard. She says Heard filed for divorce just days after the death of Depp's mother.
Dude, I love this guy's bow tie. This guy's rocking a bow tie. I just noticed that. Shit.
Filed for divorce just days after the death of Depp's mother.
What was your reaction upon hearing from your brother that he was going to marry Miss Heard?
I was scared. I was devastated, actually, that it was going to happen as quickly as it was being pushed for. I actually tried to talk him into just waiting a little bit longer, just a little bit, and not rushing.
How did you react initially when you heard from Mr. Depp's attorney that Ms. Heard had filed for divorce?
The timing of this, it made me...
God, type quieter, stenographer.
sick, actually. It really made me...
Types on
feel
mechanical.
ill. It made me...
Mechanical keyboard. Yeah, I was just reading this like this morning and being like, oh, that's right. And that's happened to me before, where someone's just like looking at your face and being like, I know what you're thinking right now. And internally you're like, this person is so full of shit. Holy fuck. You have no idea what I'm thinking right now.
Sad, frustrated. I can't even find the word to describe how I felt when I heard that the divorce was filed the day after, you know, while I'm at the funeral home.
I think she's being asked to describe, and she's saying, I couldn't even describe.
On day 2 of testimony, jurors heard from Isaac Baruch, a close friend of Depp's and one of the most memorable witnesses to date.
Ooh.
I'm not angry.
Oh, okay. So maybe we go find his testimony. I remember there's like a line from him that's been making the rounds.
Anybody. I want the best for her to take her responsibility.
Oh, it's because of the accent.
Heal and move on. Move on.
Move on,
and for Johnny, you know, his family has been completely wrecked by all of this stuff, and it's not fair. It's not right what she did and what happened for so many people to get affected from this. It's insane.
Bro, I think like he's coming to grips with the fact, like, this is what happens when powerful people get into very normal human, I mean, maybe this isn't so normal of a story, but like they get into human disputes, and then like people around them who are like normies, who aren't like part of Hollywood or like part of that upper circuit of the privileged and the elite, get sucked up into their like crazy court cases of $150 million with high-powered lawyers and all the stress that comes with that, and they're just like, what is happening? I'd love to actually try to find his testimony. It looked pretty interesting.
Tammy, was there any testimony that stood out to you and made you think, I don't think Heard was a victim of domestic violence in this case?
No, no testimony would make me think that. I think that it's just sad all the way around for any victim of domestic violence. This entire situation is unfortunate because myself being a survivor of domestic violence and being a woman that's powerful, so to speak, it's difficult enough to come forward, but to come forward and then face a defamation lawsuit of this magnitude is horrific. And to have anyone negate the allegations, that is another form of abuse, in my opinion. But there's no testimony that I heard that would, persuade me one way or the other, even if Mr. Depp was a survivor of domestic violence.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when Depp or Heard takes a stand. I think that's going to be the testimony that swings us one way or the other. Terry, we've heard about the Depp and Heard's relationship, but how do you think Depp will connect that to losing these jobs?
Well, he's claiming that what she said against him hurt his reputation. And originally in 2016, it hurt his reputation, but it was when that Washington Post op-ed came out in December of 2018.
2018? Did she say 2018?
Op-ed came out in December of 2018. That's when the reputation was really hurt. That's when he lost the Disney Pirates franchise. And so he needs to make a connection between that defamation, what she said, and the lost wages. They've had one witness, his sister so far, who sort of made that connection. She said it wasn't because he wasn't doing well, but he needs to show emails. He has to have communication, perhaps some evidence that Disney dropped him or some other movie dropped him. And that's the only way he's going to be able to show that the false statements were made, that his reputation was injured.
Yeah.
Right. That's an interesting point, that like, especially when you work for like big corporations, they're not going to actually put into their termination letter or whatever their communications, like the actual reason. That stuff's all, all pretty much corporate secret stuff, because for this reason exactly, you don't want to get sucked into a court case because one of, some actor you hired for a movie, is caught up in a big defamation trial.
There's a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe it just ended because it ended, or maybe it was because of this. Of course, we'll keep track as this continues. Thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss.
Okay, so that's kind of like the recap. Now let's actually watch the testimony. Oh, we actually have the full. This is a direct exam, and I think this should just be a clip of it. So let's skip ahead.
Any species of truth.
Please tell the jury why you're here today.
Perfect.
Yes. About 6 years ago, Ms. Heard.
I don't follow this story at all. Is Depp looking guilty? I think we're going to learn. The details are really going to start swinging us one way or the other. From what I've heard, it's that Amber Heard, like, if anything, it's the opposite, that Johnny Depp is the victim here. And I think that's the real, like, the counterintuitive reality, is that Amber is actually the one who is perpetrating a lot of the domestic abuse, allegedly, and Johnny Depp is the one trying to clear his name after he was labeled the domestic abuser. So like, and it's a very effective strategy that if like I'm pushing you around on the playground and I know you're going to go to the teachers and say, Be Weird is pushing me around, I'm going to go to the teachers first before them and say, Dan is pushing me around. And so they're going to come down on you. And so by the time you go to the teachers to say, I'm pushing you around, they're going to say, well, settle it amongst yourselves. We know you two are squabbling, essentially. We can't tell what's the reality. So it's a really effective tactic. And I don't know if that's what's going on here, but I suspect it's possible. Yeah.
Made some quite heinous and disturbing, brought these disturbing criminal acts against me that that were not based in any species of truth.
Any species
it was a complete shock that it just didn't need to go in that direction, as nothing of the kind had ever happened, though the relationship, there were arguments and things of that nature.
Yikes.
But never did I myself reach the point of striking Miss Heard in any way, nor have I ever struck any woman in my life. And so at the time, because the news of this, her accusations had sort of permeated the industry and then made its way through media, and social media became quite a global let's say, quote-unquote, fact, if you will.
Wow,
and
interesting. Whoa.
Since I knew that there...
Interesting. Right, once like a piece of information, what is it, like a lie can make itself around the world twice before the truth has gotten its shoes on, like that old Mark Twain quote or whatever. And he's kind of like saying that in so many words that like because it had been so well circulated, people just assumed it was true.
There was no truth to it whatsoever. I felt it my responsibility to stand up, not only for myself in that instance, but stand up for my children, who at the time were 14 and 16.
Yikes.
And so they were in high school, and
that sucks.
I thought it was diabolical that my children would have to go to school and have their friends or people in the school approach them with the infamous People magazine cover with Miss Heard with a dark bruise on her face. And then it just kept it kept multiplying. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. So it was my...
Wow. That is pretty... That's crazy. Holy shit.
Responsibility I felt to not only attempt to clear my name for the sake of, well, for many reasons, but I wanted to clear my children of this horrid thing that they were having to read about their father, which was untrue. And also, after many years of being in this industry, at the time, it was probably, I'd probably been in the industry 30 plus years, 35 years. Never had any problems, anything like that. And I'd met many people over the years, many of the people, and had the opportunity to talk to those people and to even give advice to these people. And I'm not, my goal is the truth. My goal is the truth because it killed me that people that I had spoken with, that I had met with over the years, who maybe were in a not such a great position and they needed advice, and I gave them the best advice I could. All I could think of was that those people would think that I was a fraud and that I had lied to them. And
So very much, yeah, this is very much about his reputation, even on from person to person.
so I had to wait for my opportunity to.
They're kind of tricky, yeah, because like you don't have insight. It's almost always like he said, she said, and oftentimes you don't know what's happening. Like if you're really locked into like a victim, like a position of victimhood, there can be all sorts of justification, self-justification, rationalizations that go on just to keep the status quo, to make it make sense, to kind of maintain the fantasy, because facing the reality and the consequences of the reality is just like overwhelming. So it's easier to, like, weirdly, the path of least resistance is to is just to sort of like forget the bad stuff, just kind of blot it from your memory and move on.
Address the charges, which were criminal charges, and they just weren't true. So I felt
This is different though, because the like, let's say if we take Johnny Depp at his word and he's the victim of domestic abuse, it's even worse because it's psychological, right? Like let's say his story is true and she sort of spread this lie across the world. It's both public and private. Like the type of abuse is happening between you, like you know what's going on, what the real story is between you and the other person, but then publicly it's a completely different story, and the person being abused can't make those two worlds meet. And so you need like $150 million or $50 million defamation case to sort of make those two worlds collide. Yeah,
the responsibility of clearing the record as the only
clear the record, right?
the only way that I could get to the point where I could speak has really taken this full 6 years, and it's been 6 years of trying times. It's very strange when one day you're Cinderella, so to speak, and then in 0.6 seconds you're Quasimodo.
Wow.
And I didn't deserve that, nor did my children, nor did the people who have believed in me for all these years. I didn't want any of those people to believe that I had done them wrong or lied to them or that I was a fraud. I pride myself on honesty. I pride myself on truth. Truth is the only thing I'm interested in.
He's literally an actor who plays like an alternate character who's a bumbling drunken liar. It's brilliant. Like what an onion to unravel.
Lies will get you nowhere, but
Brilliant.
Lies build upon lies and build upon lies. It's too much to cover.
Yeah, that's the real question.
I'm obsessed with the truth, and so today is the first opportunity that I've been able to speak about this case in full for the first time.
That's really important to know. Like, he didn't pop off on social media. He has maintained his like message discipline. His only comments on it are going to be in the court record. Like, that does sound like somebody who is trying to clear their name, that is trying to like go through the proper channels, etc. But damn, man, $50 million. I guess, like, he had a
Mr.
career.
Depp, how do you feel about the intimate details of your life being aired in this process?
Oh God, here we go.
As a father, raising kids, when they were very, very little, it was important to me, very important to me, to try to shield my children as much as possible from looking at their father or their mom, for that matter.
How do you act like yourself when your job is to pretend to be other people? I mean, in his case, like, he is putting on such a ridiculous character that it is pretty easy to sort of separate Johnny Depp, the actor, from Johnny Depp, the person. And I know that, like, for a lot of other people, like take like Michael Cera. It would be really hard to separate Michael Cera, the actor, from Michael Cera, the person, because like his acting character is so much a map of his persona, all the parts. He's typecast, right, as that sort of like meek, polite, wiry young boy, young lad, or whatever. But Johnny Depp plays a bombastic pirate of the Caribbean. It's a fantasy world in Disney. Like, it's very much a caricature. So it's pretty easy for me to be like, yeah, fantasy, reality. But definitely that's one of the things to watch, right? Like, is that sort of like, how do you tell what's real, especially in like a court case where we're trying to, everybody's, purportedly trying to get to the facts, but let's see.
As novelties, I didn't want my children to experience hordes of paparazzis.
Right.
So I was always a very private person. So for me to come up here and stand before you, or sit before you all, and spill the truth is quite exposing. And it's unfortunate that it's not only exposing for myself, it's exposing for my family, it's exposing for Miss Heard, it's exposing for, it never had to go in this direction. And so I can't say that I'm embarrassed, because I know that I'm doing the right thing.
Now, Mr. Depp, I'd like to turn a bit to your upbringing. We heard a bit from your sister Christy last week, but can you please tell the jury in your own words about your childhood upbringing?
I had a very interesting childhood, one that I thought was normal until a certain age. My mother, I was born in Kentucky, and then we moved, in which we moved around quite a lot when I was a kid. So you were always just, my mom had this, her feet were on fire and she had to move. So we moved constantly. So you were always the new kid. And that wasn't ever particularly pleasant. Then we moved to Florida, South Florida, when I was about 7 or 8. And again, moved several times. But my mother was quite unpredictable. She was very unpredictable. She had the ability to be as cruel as anyone can be.
Oh my God.
With all of us, that is to say, my sister Christy and my brother Danny and my sister Debbie.
Yo, that's intense.
Also my father. So,
He's calling his mother cruel.
essentially, she could become quite violent. And she was quite violent. And she was quite cruel. And
Holy shit.
And though there was physical abuse, certainly, which could be in the form of an ashtray being flung at you, it hits you in the head, or you'd get beat with a high heel shoe, or a telephone, or whatever's handy.
Yikes. Hey,
So
remember when that was
in
just,
our
just taken as like parental wisdom, that just beating kids is good for them, that everybody should just remember that was the thing?
house, we were never exposed to any type of safety or security. The only thing that one could do, really, was to try to stay out of the line of fire. I started to be able to observe, and I could start to see when she was about to head into a
rage,
head into a situation where she was going to get riled up,
Yeah.
and somebody was going to get it.
Yeah.
Generally,
Gotta get your dose of rage. Some people, they just train their brain to like need that rush, that adrenaline rush.
it was me.
Mr. Depp, you mentioned that your mother could be cruel. How could she be cruel?
This is not what we expected, but this is what we're getting.
Well, the various categories, I suppose, are there's physical violence, of course. There's physical abuse, to which she was. That was a constant. That was just a constant, you know.
Yikes.
We were all somewhat shell-shocked, you know. Even if she just walked past us, you'd sort of shield yourself because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Shit.
Excuse me. And so there was the physical abuse, which was a constant. There was quite a lot of verbal abuse. There was quite a lot of name calling and bullying. You know, making fun of whatever defect, you know, one might have. You know, if my brother wore glasses,
it's like emotional
so of course he was four eyes,
right?
And his teeth were messed up in the front, so he was buck-toothed as well. My sister Christy, which this is such a...
We really are just grown-up children. We really are just grown-up children carrying all of our traumas inside.
A hideous psychological play. My father's parents were quite refined. My mother comes from Eastern Kentucky, which is where you grow up in shacks and hollers. You know.
Holy shit!
And
he just called his father, like, this is very much like oh boy, what a background. I don't do like the celebrity stuff, so I barely know like anything about these people.
My mother despised my father's parents.
Wow.
And my grandmother's name was Violet. And every now and again you would hear my mother just scream across the house, "Come here, Violet, get in here, Violet." And Christy, my sister, knew very well that that was a deep cut, psychologically, emotionally. But we had to take it. I mean, you just had to take the pain. I was born with a very strange, it was a very rare thing in my eye, as the back of the lens is spherical. Normally, is spherical. So in this eye, it isn't normal. This eye, I was born with a more conical lens, so my brain never learned to see out of my left eye, and they noticed when I was about 3, 4, that I had a lazy eye, a wandering eye, and
okay, yeah, sure.
She would call.
I mean, I think like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't have a kid, so I can't really relate. But my mom is lovely and wonderful. My dad's, you know, okay. But yeah, I don't get the whole like. I think you're just so full of rage and discontent, and kids are so demanding, and you don't have any skills to adapt to it. So you just take it out on them because they're defenseless, and it's an easy target. And then once that sort of like becomes like an answer to your frustrations, then woof, tap that vein, buddy. What's the kid gonna do? You know, it could go real bad real fast. You know, but I didn't know that about his parents.
Call me.
I can't believe like this is some pretty interesting backstory to Johnny Depp.
She would call me cockeye, one eye.
Wow. Yeah, she's just like laying into her kids. Sounds like the fucking bully. Just like, oh, my mom's bullying me again. From
anything she could get to demean, humiliate. I even had to wear an eye patch on my good eye.
Ah, that explains it. That's where the pirate stuff comes from.
To strengthen my bad eye, so that it would cease to wander. With it was exercising the muscles of the eye.
Smart.
Though the brain had never learned to see, so I still my vision in my left eye is. I'm legally blind in my left eye.
No shot.
But so yeah, the verbal abuse, the psychological abuse, was almost worse than the beatings.
Yeah.
Because the beatings were just physical pain.
And it goes
the
away.
physical pain, you learn to deal with. You learn to accept it. You learn to deal with it. But the psychological and emotional abuse, that's what kind of tore us up, I think.
That's what lasts a lifetime. You know, when you want your kids to remember you for the rest of your life.
What about your father? What was he like?
I'm just gonna go to the washroom. I'll be right
My
back.
my father was a very kind man. In fact, my father's still alive. He's a very kind man. He's a very quiet man. In fact, he's very shy. Not a confrontational person in any way. And when Betty Sue, my mother, would go off on a tangent toward my father, and of course in front of the kids it was no matter to her. He amazingly remained very, very stoic, and never, as she was rationing him with horrible things, he stood there and just looked at her while she delivered the pain, and he swallowed it. He took it. There was never one moment, never a moment when my father lost control and attacked my mother or hit my mother or even said a bad thing to my mother. The things that I witnessed were, there were a couple of times when it got too far, that I could see his eyes welling up as he was staring at her, saying nothing. And then the most that he would do is he would punch a wall. I once saw him punch a wall and shatter his hand because it wasn't drywall. It was proper concrete and steel wire and rebar and things of that nature. And but still, never touched her, never argued with her. He remained a gentleman. And to me, as a 5-year-old boy, I kept thinking to myself, I kept wondering why does he take it?
It's a really intense story.
How does he take this? And why doesn't he leave her?
At 5 years old?
But he didn't,
I feel like that's one of those things that you realize that as a teenager and you've kind of filled back in. But
he was able to maintain his calm and his composure. He was able to maintain his relationship with his children. He was a good man. He is a good man.
You mentioned that.
Wow, he literally painted his parents as angel and devil. His father was an angel. His mother was a devil. I guess it's possible.
You saw your father punch a wall. How many times did you witness that?
I mean, out of, I couldn't count the amount of fights that they had, but I know that I've seen my father strike a wall 2 or 3 times tops.
Yeah, I think we place like such a different amount of value on physical violence over social or psychological or emotional violence. Like from his telling, his father's being yelled at and emotionally abused on the reg, and his examples of physical violence are directed towards inanimate objects. So he's very much painting this as psychological abuse is harmful and physical abuse that isn't necessarily harmful, particularly towards inanimate objects. And I wonder if that's going to play out later, if this is going to be part of this sort of legal strategy, if this isn't just him pouring out, his childhood secrets, spilling the tea as it were, but actually part of the legal case. I mean, 6 years in the making.
Once when he broke his hand, but yeah, 2-3 times at tops.
Was your father ever abusive to you or any of your siblings?
No, my father was not an abusive man. at the same time, my father was also, to some degree, at the mercy of Betty Sue. Because if he argued with what she wanted done, that would just turn into another barrage of hatred towards him. So I can remember my father coming home from work, and maybe I'd gotten a bad report card, or maybe I'd gotten in trouble at school, or something like that. And my father would arrive home from work, and the first thing she would say was, "John, take him out there. He gets the belt. Give him the belt." And he wanted to know what it was about, so he'd take me out to the garage, and
Wait, what?
I'll never forget this white, thick leather 1970s era, thick leather white belt that he would take off, and then he would commence to inflict the punishment on me.
Eesh.
But
yikes!
Interestingly, there was one time when my father, I kept telling him I didn't do this. It was another incident. I kept swearing to him that I did not do what Betty Sue, what my mom had said that I'd done. But he went through with the punishment anyway.
Huh.
And then,
yikes!
not long
Imagine
after,
being so cucked by your wife that you're like beating your kid because you trust her word over his, over the kids.
so he found out that I had been telling the truth, and that I hadn't done what my mom had said that I'd done. And he came to me and apologized to me for having gone through with the whipping, the belt.
Yeah, no shit.
And
beat your kid on a lie.
I have to say, my mom never did that. She couldn't. She knew what she knew. She was raised how she was raised.
Right.
And
baked in clay.
I had no power to change what was inside of her.
How did your parents' relationship ultimately come to an end, to your understanding?
When my father left, I didn't realize that he had left. He left to her. I was 15. I had already left school.
Wow. Stuck with her for 15 years. That's crazy.
And I was a musician. I was playing
At the
in
very least.
clubs and such. And he left for work one morning, just like every day, and was packing his car, and then he left. And then hours later, my mom, Betty Sue, came home from work. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon. And she walked in the door and stopped and just looked around like she felt something. And I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Your daddy's gone."
Oh.
I said, "Well, yeah, I seen him leave for work this morning." She said, No, he's gone. And she ran into their bedroom and into their closet, and I followed her, and she opened the door, and there was his rack of clothing and all his belongings were gone.
Whoa.
And she was quite upset, and I took her car and drove to my father's work, and I sat down in front of him at 15, and I said, "Listen, seems as though somebody stole all your clothes out of the closet." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I can't live it anymore.
Wow.
You're the man now."
Yow. Holy shit.
And
soy.
Those words didn't quite sit well with me. I
Yeah, no.
didn't feel like I was ready to hear those words.
Yeah, no kidding.
But that's what I got. Then my mom went into a very, very dark place, a very deep, dark depression, as you can imagine.
Oh my God. God.
One afternoon I woke up, I'd fallen asleep, and I woke up and walked out into the living room, and I saw my mother, very feebly, and like almost, it was like a slow motion crawl. If I could stand up, I could show you just what I saw. Do you
A
mind-
slow
do you mind-
motion. Oh my god, what? Bro,
I
this guy's
saw-
like, this is my chance. I've been shopping this in front of the lawyers for weeks now. I'm just imagining him like going through scene after scene with his lawyers, like this. Does this communicate to the jury, to the world?
I saw my mother.
Is this ad hoc, bro? What the fuck?
In that mode.
What the fuck?
So instantly, I knew that something was dreadfully wrong, and
creepy.
There was drool coming out of her mouth.
Oh my god, creepy.
As I was about to run and call, the front door busted open, and my uncle and 2 paramedics came in.
Holy shit.
Threw her on the gurney and whisked her out of the house to get her to the hospital to pump her stomach. And she had swallowed a multitude of pills to try to take herself out, to try to commit suicide.
Yo.
And when she got out of the hospital, she was a small firecracker of a woman. She was about 5'2". But when she got out of the hospital, the depression was so deep. She was down to like, she lived on the couch and she weighed about 70 pounds. And
oh, this is upsetting.
All that imagery spun into my head at that time, that I thought that was in my head at the time, I thought that was a cowardly way for my father to have left. And I was deeply upset by that. Until my father and I had a conversation years later where I asked him what really happened, how did it happen?
Yeah.
When I was older. And he told me the story.
Your Honor, may we approach? Sure.
Okay.
I would.
Okay.
I was very disappointed in him because I started to believe that his exit was sneaky, cowardly. He didn't. When he said goodbye to me when he left for work that morning, he just said goodbye. Goodbye, Bob. No, see you later, Pop. That was it. Until I learned the truth from him.
And without getting into what your father told you,
yeah,
how has your
I think they might have approached the bench to discuss relevance. Like, how relevant is what his father told him about why he left his mother? Like, what does that have to do with this case?
impression of your father changed now?
Right.
Objection, relevance.
There it is. Called
Your
it.
Honor, this is just an understanding of his perception of his family.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
I'll sustain the. So yeah.
Mr. Depp, what have you
relevance?
learned from your experience in your childhood and observing your father in your childhood?
I learned that I was wrong about my first impressions of his exit from the family.
Nice. Way to
very wrong.
Tie it back in.
And I'll tell you one thing that I learned that was one of the best lessons I believe I've ever learned in my life, ever could learn in my life, was based on my experiences as a child and what I'd seen and experienced. I knew exactly how to raise children. When my girl Vanessa got pregnant,
like, because so many.
I knew exactly how to raise children, which was to do the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Of what they did, of what Betty Sue did. Never raise your voice in front of the children, never. Screaming out the word no to them I never wanted to tell my kids no. I wanted to tell them that I wanted to show them that there were options. You don't have to stick the coat hanger in the electrical socket. You know, saying no is an abrupt thing, but to talk to them and say, if you understand the repercussions of something, then you won't go there. So maybe think about this as opposed to this. Give this some thought, you know. But that will clearly...
I mean, toddler going around. Yeah.
So...
You have to be pretty clear.
I would ease them away from things of that nature with a more of a conversation as opposed to a
authoritarian,
you know, flat out, don't you ever do that again, and threats and things of that nature.
Respect my authority.
I did not raise my children that way. Nor did Vanessa. We never raised our voices in front of our children ever.
How do you think your experiences with your parents in your childhood affected your approach to your relationship with Miss Heard?
I'm sorry, one more time?
How did your experiences observing your parents as a child affect your approach to your relationship with Miss Heard?
Yeah. What does this have to do with the case at hand?
Well...
That was 40 minutes, 30 minutes, let's say, of backstory about Johnny Depp's, like, parents and... stuff. He just slagged his mom in court. Why did you do all that? What does that have to do with this Amber Heard allegation?
In the beginning of my relationship with Miss Heard, there was, from what I recall and what I remember, she was it was as if she was too good to be true. She was attentive, she was loving, she was smart, she was kind, she was funny, she was understanding, and we had many things in common, certain blues music and, well, music, literature, things of that nature. So for that year or year and a half, it was amazing. There were a couple of things.
Infatuation.
Things that, I don't know, stuck in my head that I noticed that I thought might be a little bit of a dilemma at some point. For example, I worked quite a lot, and when I would come home from work, I would come in the house or the hotel, and she would sit me down on the couch and give me a glass of wine and take my boots off, set them to the side, and I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. I just never thought I just never experienced that before. And it became a regular thing.
What, where she'd take off his boots for him?
That she did. This kind of routine.
Did I miss that?
Wine. She would sit me down on the couch and give me a glass of wine and take my boots off, set them to the side, and...
That's really nice.
I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. I just never thought that was...
Seems
never
sweet.
experienced that before.
Seems kind of nice.
And it became a regular thing that she did, this kind of routine. And I remember one night I came home from work, and I think she was on the phone or something, or busy. She was doing something, and so I sat down on the couch and I took my boots off.
Yeah.
And suddenly Miss Heard approached with this look on her face, and she just said, "What did you just do? What did you do?" I said, "What do you mean?" "You took your boots off."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, yes, I did. You were busy, you know." No, that's my job. That's what I do. You don't do that. I do that." "Okay, all right then." And then she said, "Let me get you a glass of wine." And she brought me the glass of wine. But I did take pause, of course, at the fact that she was visibly shaken or upset that I had... I had broken her
routine.
Rules of routine.
Yeah. Exactly. That's
I thought that strange. And then
that's strange.
Once you notice something like that,
I would not have let that go. I would not have just let that go. It would have been like, sorry, this is my body. You want to have the fight over this now? We're having it right now. Like, you should not have let that go. That's definitely a yellow flag.
then you start to notice other little tidbits. And
It's like consent and control, right? Like, I don't have consent over my own body because you feel like you don't have control over the situation. That's not okay. That's potential red flag right there.
come out, and then within a year and a half, she had become this another person almost.
Wow.
Mr. Depp, we're going to talk about Miss Heard in a couple minutes, but I'd like to first talk about your career in Hollywood. And so could you please tell the jury how you ended up acting in the first place?
I ended up acting by accident. I was a musician, and I moved out to Los Angeles with my band when I was 20 years old.
Wow.
And then there were a couple of things that happened in the band where the band split up, and
Oof.
I remember I was filling out job applications, and then Nick, with a friend of mine who happens to be, he was an actor, less known than he is now, Nicolas Cage. And I was filling out job applications at any video stores, clothing stores, anything, just to be able to pay the rent. And Nick Cage said, why don't you meet my agent? Because I think you're an actor. I think you could be an actor. And I said, look, I'll meet anybody. I'll do anything at this point.
Dang.
And so he sent me to his agent, Eileen Feldman, and I met with her. She sent me to read for a casting director named Annette Benson, who was casting a film called The Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wow. So if you know the right person, damn.
They brought me back to read for the director, Wes Craven.
Get a really good shot. Holy shit.
I read for Wes Craven and somehow got the job. But I mean, I was by no means an actor. I didn't have any desire to be an actor. I was a musician.
Weird.
But the fact that these people were going to pay me what I found to be a ludicrous sum of money, which was it was kind of the SAG minimum. It was $1,284 a week.
Whoa!
I'd never seen that kind of dough
Holy
before
shit.
in my life.
I've never seen that kind of dough. If I can be honest.
And so I suddenly, then I did some other.
That was 30 years ago, I bet.
Dumb movies, because I still, in my mind, I was a musician, and this was just a way to
Interesting.
pay the rent, pay the bills, live.
Wow.
Then suddenly I found myself on that road. I had been placed on that road as an actor, and then one thing led to another, from film to film, and then I was cast in a TV series called 21 Jump Street when I was 22.
Wow.
Mr.
2
Depp,
years.
Between the time that you were cast in Nightmare on Elm Street and you were cast in 21 Jump Street, how did you enjoy acting during that time?
Okay.
It was foreign to me. It was foreign to me, but I didn't have any great ambition to be an actor. I'm a
You fell into it, everybody.
Naturally, normally, I've always been quite a shy person. I've always been quite introverted.
Interesting.
And so there was a very strange metamorphosis from being one of four, that is to say, one of four in a band, where you have this fraternity or this brotherhood.
I am so confused as well. I think like what's happening here is his attorney is asking him questions to sort of lay out the full connection of Amber said the thing and I reacted this way because of my experience with my parents, and this is my motivation for bringing this suit for defamation, because defamation is very much about clearing your name. So he's outlined his motivation, and now it looks like they're going to start connecting it to a loss of employment. And not only that, he's losing something particularly special. We're going to learn, I bet, soon that this grew on him and that acting became such an important thing for him. Like at first, oh, it wasn't that big a deal, but now all of a sudden, you know, and I think that's going to help build their case for the defamation suit by saying like, look, there's a real cost to this allegation. Yeah.
And you're out there fighting the world together to try to get that.
But yeah, this is like 1.25 speed, and we're like almost an hour in just learning about Johnny Depp's backstory. It's like, okay, all right, okay. I'm sure there's a Wikipedia page on this or something. What the fuck?
Record deal or whatever you're looking for. And when I got on the series and my life started to change in various ways, that is to say that people started to, you know, you go into a restaurant and you'd see people whispering and pointing and all that. I was very uncomfortable with it. I was very uncomfortable with it, and I didn't like it. Just because
it's gotta be weird.
I never wanted to be the lead singer and the guy out front and we'll get all the attention.
What instrument did he play?
So suddenly I was on my own, and I was having to deal with this
Hollywood vampires.
This newfound sort of notoriety. And it was odd. It was very odd.
No, wait, no, that's later.
That's
later.
Yeah, it was a very uncomfortable thing. I mean, I don't think it's anything that one can get used to. I'm still not used to it now, and which I'm actually glad that I'm not used to it, because if I were, I don't think I'd be the same person that I am.
Mr. Depp, did there come a time when you became passionate about acting?
He played guitar. Interesting.
Once I realized that that's the road that I was on.
The band was called The Kids from 1980s. And when he makes the supergroup with Alice Cooper and Joe Perry, he goes and gets his buddy Bruce Wickin from the 1980s band, The Kids. That's actually pretty wild. He's like, yo, I kind of made it to the top, but I didn't forget about you. Why don't you come play with us and Alice Cooper? Holy fuck.
And any attempt at going back to music would be would have been. I hated the idea that since the television series had come out and I had been exposed as this character or this actor, I had to realize in my own mind and heart that there was no going back to music, because I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to use whatever amount of success that I had attained from the TV series and that sort of thing. I didn't want to use that to influence you know, some career in music.
Like he wouldn't feel he had earned his success in music because he had earned his success in acting? Is that what he's saying?
I had far too much respect for music than to just become what they wanted me to become, which was a, you know, teen idol or a teeny, you know, that sort of thing. I fought that with everything in my being. So
interesting.
Once I realized that music was no longer an option, then I began to study at various places. You know, the Loft Studio, which is now long gone, in Los Angeles. I studied with some other teachers, Sandra Seacat. I read all the books that you could read, and all that was great, but you realize that the only way to learn, or the only way to learn how to, it's not act necessarily, the only way to learn how to react and behave, because it's just behavior and it's reaction.
Right.
was to do it. You
learn by doing.
It's on the job training. It's trial by fire.
Always.
So
true.
I did my best.
I mean, this has been a pretty interesting retrospective of his life. Like it's a much different, like, you know, there's the, what is it, Inside the Actor Studio, where there's like a very good journalist who asks actors questions about like where they came from and how it affected their acting career. This is kind of that right now.
To work up my own approach towards a character and such.
And what were a couple of the first few projects that you worked on where you were really able to implement that approach?
What a question. Who cares? What is this?
I would say that the first film that
Diversity as fast as possible. He didn't want to make it in the music industry because he was becoming famous. Yeah, that's kind of what I was reading. There's a podcast? No. You think he's a jerk, Zach Braxton?
That I really took.
He's coming across pretty humble.
Where I really felt, okay, I've done the work. I know what I need to do. I would say that where I considered myself an actor, I suppose, was when Oliver Stone cast me in Platoon in 1986.
Platoon. Wow. That's right. He was in that.
How did you come to be cast in Pirates of the Caribbean?
Well, that's many years later, but
yeah, well, we're skipping past your life story, my guy, to get to the heart of the situation here.
I had been Disney had offered me a film called Hidalgo when it was about a man and his horse in the desert and stuff, and I read the screenplay, and I just didn't think it was for me.
Okay.
But I wanted to have a meeting with them because at that point I had a 2-year-old.
Oh, right. Yeah. I almost considered putting up like a game or something just to play something in the background because they're just like, oh, okay, all right, we're learning about your backstory. I mean, the early stuff was super interesting about his parents and stuff. That stuff I could relate to.
2.5-year-old daughter, and so, or 3, and for 3 years I watched nothing but animated films, cartoons from Tex Avery to Bugs Bunny to
Miyazaki.
That was all I watched with my
doesn't say Ghibli
with my
damn
little girl, and I received the screenplay for Pirates, and it was I somehow in my mind I saw this opportunity, like a way to mesh characters like like cartoon characters.
Right.
For example,
right.
Wile E. Coyote gets a boulder dropped on his head, and he's completely crushed. But they cut to the next scene, and he's just got a little bandage on his head.
Right.
So I started thinking about the parameters that were available to cartoon characters, and if they were available to cartoon characters, and nobody ever asked a question, whether you were 5 or 95. You didn't ask a question. Oh.
He said he wants to assassinate. Oh my God. One of the most interesting person to listen to is Mike Tyson, is super into mushrooms. I heard, isn't there like a Mike Tyson mysteries that you can watch nowadays? Like, oh my God. I can't believe he's trying to. I think the coolest thing Mike Tyson has done recently are the Tyson bites, I think. The candy? Yeah, Mike Tyson is making pot edibles in the shape of a bitten ear. So that's a win. That's a win in my books. Here's the actual tweet. Look at these fucking things. And the ear even has a chunk. That's so funny. Oh my God. The ear has a little bite out of them. Oh my God. Now that's marketing. That's branding and marketing. So funny. Yeah, that's so good.
Wile E. Coyote, of course he's still alive.
But also this like narrative about like creating a cartoonish character like in the Pirates of the Caribbean really does kind of validate what I was saying earlier about like the fantasy Johnny Depp versus the real life Johnny Depp. Like I've found him pretty sincere and straightforward, and well, not straightforward. This has been like incredibly rambly or not rambly, but just like hardly relevant. Like I'm really curious to see what the argument is going to be that like ties this all together, because it's been quite the deep dive. Johnny Depp lore.
So I tried to incorporate these kind of ideas into the character.
Like we're literally learning about his acting methods. Like, Jesus, we don't need to know about this.
Of Captain Jack Sparrow, so that.
But you know what? If I'm bringing a $50 million case, hell yeah, I'm going through all my childhood trauma.
So that I could try to push those parameters and control the sort of suspension of disbelief, to be able to control the characters' actions, words, movements, and put them in a place where the things that he would do or say were so either ludicrous or mainly something that also
cartoonish.
The cartoon characters can get away with things we can't. Captain Jack Sparrow can do things that I could never do. He could say things that I could never say.
He found his avatar. This is very much like, I didn't find just a role. I found who I really was on the inside. I knew that they were going to build up like he didn't really love acting, but now he really loves acting. This is entirely relevant.
So it was for me a way to stretch the parameters of a character and take a risk in doing that. But if it panned out, and I felt I was on a pretty good mission. If it panned out, I thought that it might be a character who would be accepted by 5-year-olds and 45-year-olds and 65-year-olds and 85-year-olds, and in the same way that Bugs Bunny is,
You mentioned
believed.
You mentioned that you received the script. When was that?
I'm sorry?
When did you first receive the script for Pirates of the Caribbean?
The first screenplay I received was 2002, I believe. Yeah, 2002.
And what did you think of that script when you received it?
I thought that it had all the...
That's to prove that acting is his calling and he lost opportunities because of Heard. Smart. Yeah, that's where I figured they were going, right? Like, he never really considered it much of a career, but at a certain point he realized he was firmly on this path. And now later in his career, he found a role that is like central to his emotional being. like so much of his career experience has been poured into crafting a unique role, a unique asset that goes away without him. So that's like going to become the damages part of this defamation lawsuit. Like, this is what he lost. He didn't just lose a role or lose like opportunities. He lost like an entire career path that was honed almost purely for him and by him. Like, he's really gonna lean into this Pirates of the Caribbean shtick.
kind of hallmarks of a Disney film. That is to say, a kind of a predictable predictable 3-act structure and the character of Captain Jack was more he was more like a swashbuckler type that would kind of swing in shirtless and, you know, be the hero. And I had quite different ideas about the character, so I incorporated my notes into the character and brought that character to life, much to the chagrin of Disney initially.
Now, when you say you made changes to the character, how did you do that?
Just, you know, in preparation, you know, the very same way that I've ever approached any character. You look for a back history. You base it on, you know, it could be anything. Like Edward Scissorhands, for example, I based on a dog that I'd had and
a dog,
newborn babies. My sister had a couple of new babies, and I watched them, you know, because I thought that Edward would see things from the sort of from a place of innocence and not knowing exactly what things meant or were, and and also that look of a pure, innocent child when they experience something for the first time. Those were the two main ingredients that I thought would serve the character.
This is going to improve my acting chops. I'm learning so much about how to act right now.
And with
he's talking about how to look innocent in a fucking defamation case, looking very innocent. Oh fuck no.
Captain Jack.
Oh shit.
Again, the cartoons, you know, the Pepe Le Pew. It's like making a soup. You know, it's ingredients. It's just ingredients.
Acting is just soup.
There's some Pepe Le Pew in there. There's some Keith Richards in there. There's a bit of a
Keith Richards.
You know, I figured this is a guy who's been on the sea for the majority of his life. Quite possibly, his brains may have been scrambled a bit by the sun.
Sure.
And also, I thought that he'd been
But doesn't he wear a hat?
on the sea for so long that he had his sea legs, but when he got on land, he just didn't have his land legs, so he could
This is
never
funny.
quite
This is funny.
stand still.
Cool. I'm glad we got this backstory into the character.
How
What
did the film
fuck?
ultimately turn out in your view?
Oh boy.
I didn't see it, but
Lol.
I believe that the film. Well, I mean, the film did pretty well apparently, and they wanted to keep going, making more, and I was fine to do that. There's great freedom in being able to. It's not like you become that person, but if you know that character to the degree that I did, because he was not what the writers wrote, so they really weren't able to write for him. So once you know a character better than the writers, that's when you have to be true to the character and add your words, add the rewrites. I was. Yeah, no, I believed in the character wholeheartedly, and initially the Disney folks were somewhat upset.
Wow.
Now, you mentioned that the film was, to your understanding, a great success. How did your life change after the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out?
Disney hated his character. That's so funny.
Though I'd been around for many years already, and people.
ASD. What is that? Is that Rick Astley? Rick Astley.
People knew who I was and all that. After Pirates 1 came out.
Welcome to the stream, ASDF, by the way.
There was a completely different. It was a completely different way of life. Was being sort of. You know, my family and I were being plunged into. That is to say, you know, at our house in Los Angeles, you would have people trying to climb the gates to get into.
Jesus.
See Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, I bet.
You would have people trying to bust in the gates dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh my God.
And follow you and your family. So that was the moment when there was no other way but to we had to hire more security.
Oh my God,
guards,
that's
and I was certainly
creepy.
worried for my kids.
Yeah, no kidding.
Safety, and so then
Like random
that's when
strangers showing up.
instead of just the one guy, there became several security people, because I wanted to make sure that my kids were safe when they went to school or when they went to Disneyland or when they went to the mall or whatever.
Man, imagine having to hire private security
yes,
for your
more-
kids like all the time. It's like you got teenagers going to the mall. Just don't forget, like Eduardo, your private detective that defends you.
More security, and then just getting followed.
Yikes.
By hordes of paparazzi and things like that. It's I've had worse jobs, certainly. I can't complain.
Amber Heard's lawyer's tactics are so obvious. I'm not sure if this is Amber Heard's. I think this is his. The same question 4 times, evidently aiming to piss him off? Really? No, I think this is his lawyers trying to get him to. This isn't cross-examination. I think like he's being led through his case by his own lawyer. But maybe I'm reading it wrong, Kieran.
About it. But yeah, after a while, you realize that
because we just went through his entire history, like his relationship with his parents and how his mom was really cruel and used to beat him and abuse him psychologically and emotionally. Comes at the end for 10 minutes. Okay, all right. You're talking about the cross-exam.
Anonymity.
Okay, we haven't got there
has
yet.
left the building a long time ago. You know, the anonymity's gone, and that's an odd thing to deal with. When you just, I mean, you can't just drive down to the diner and get a cup of coffee or something. It's not.
Yeah, it's pretty
possible.
intense.
It turns into something else altogether.
Like a gilded cage, like a golden prison.
So it's, you know, it's acceptance, and of course there's a bit of sacrifice involved. I can't complain about the work that I've been given. I can't complain about any of that. I have no right to.
Yeah, but yeah, he's coming from like pretty poor background, too.
It does make you have to think very creatively with when you've got little kids about how to take them to the park,
right?
Or you know, to the swings, or to the this or that, or movie, or you know, it becomes a strategic mission.
Yikes.
And that's what happens.
Yeah, fame isn't always necessarily a good thing, you know? Like, y'all can make me famous by subscribing and liking the video, and sure enough, in like a year or two, I'll be famous. But, you know, given what we're seeing from Johnny Depp, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it.
Now, you mentioned your family. Who did your family consist of at that time?
Vanessa, Parody, the mother of my children, who we were together for 14, 15 years. Myself, our daughter Lily Rose, and our boy Jack.
Now, you mentioned hiring more security. Did you already have a security team at the time that Pirates of the Caribbean came out?
Right.
Yes, because there'd been more films prior to that. I mean, a number of films prior to that. So
yeah, he was famous for Pirates of the Caribbean. I thought.
I was.
You listened to the audio recordings yet? No. Well, I'm trying to do this from like the ground up because I know so little about it. So Long Crime gave a good like synopsis. I've heard a bit on like Hassan's stream, some of the audio stuff, but it's going to come up in court. So having it like really, really well contextualized is might be extremely damning. I want to see that happen, but like in court, because it's one thing to sort of find something that's floating about on the internet that's maybe not so contextualized. Having it brought up within the context of like essentially $200 million adds so much more like dramatic tension and stuff. So I'm really curious to see how that particular evidence plays in court, and also be a nice like opportunity to be exposed to it like for a serious lesson. But yeah, from what I've heard, she's done and said some shit. I think like when I first learned about this was years ago when that clip was going around, that audio clip. But that was like during the height of the Me Too movement, and it felt really dirty to be like, oh, I don't know if this Amber Heard allegation is totally true, you know? Like, it's usually the dude who's doing the domestic abuse, just statistically, last I checked.
Recognized, and I was known, so if you wanted to attempt to have any experience that might be normal.
2 days after his mom died. Stop.
You sort of had to have somebody around to get you out of a squirrely situation should it arise. So I had security prior to that for who would travel with myself and my family.
Like one of the things, she planned everything, even applied for a restraining order when he was out of Europe, so he couldn't contest it. Okay, well, we'll find about that in due time. Part of why I like going the long, slow route is that you do get some really deep context. It wasn't totally relevant learning about like his relationship with his parents, but it definitely like adds to the, I don't know, the psychological profile we're building of Johnny Depp as a community, as people watching in, of like, damn, his parents came from a relationship where the dad was being abused by the mom. Like, that's pretty interesting context. I don't know.
But not like, you know, when I was at work, back then I didn't have security at work so much, you know, and not before Pirates. Pirates was really that was the thing that
You popped off.
everything,
Yeah.
It all turned around. It all just went weird.
So how did your security team change after Pirates of the Caribbean came out?
Well, like I said, with anything, it become more strategic, and you had to have more guys.
Yikes.
Or gals, because.
Or NBs.
Because if Vanessa, for example, she worked in France quite a lot, and if she was in France,
Right. Oh my God.
and I was in LA with the kiddies, then and working, security would basically pick my kids up at school or whatever and bring them home. So that became the routine, driving
Okay.
them to school.
All right.
Bringing
Security
them home.
brings it back. They're just like really beefy
yeah,
nannies.
and then if I went somewhere, it just, the security guards kind of multiplied.
Wow,
Because you
of
needed
course.
to protect your street, your house,
Oh,
your kids.
no.
Endless.
Yeah.
So after Pirates of the Caribbean, who has been on your security team?
This is like what happens when you win the lottery. Like the fame ends up poisoning your safety. Like you can't go anywhere without getting mobbed by someone asking for money or something, or in Johnny Depp's case, dressing up as Captain Jack Sparrow and being like, "Look at me, give me a hug." It's interesting how he articulates his sentences very slow and stuttery. Wasn't allowed his own opinion or even able to talk much in his relationship. Yeah, I would caution against like trying to read in too much, because this is coming in like 6 years in the making, right? So the words he's saying right now have been very much constructed from the perspective of we need to clear our name, and that can be a noble, honest pursuit. When does today start? Today has started, ASDF. I'm sorry to say, but it is 9 a.m. in Canada, in Montreal. But body-wise, he's obviously scarred. I'm just honestly surprised he has such a demure, like shy persona. That's very much in conflict with like the roles he takes on that are bombastic and, like garrulous and ridiculous, cartoonish, as you would call it.
Jerry Judge was with me for, oh boy, over 20 years. Jerry Judge we mentioned it before. It was a year or two ago.
Oh, today's court hearing. That's a good question. I'll try to figure it out.
Jerry would go on film sets with me. He would do reconnaissance missions. That is to say, he would go to a country before we would go there, make sure all the hotel rooms were all
I think this is yesterday.
taken care of and such. Or when I went on tour with, say, the Hollywood Vampires, which is
2 days ago,
a band that I played with. He would come on the road with me with another security guard. So there was Jerry Judge, there was Malcolm Connolly, who's been with me for 20 years or more.
10
Leonard
a.m.
Damien, Sean Pett.
In an hour, the live coverage for today will start, and we'll try to catch up on some of the stuff.
Travis McGivern, Mark Gibbs.
3 p.m. GMT? Yeah, in an hour, yeah.
There are a few.
Are all of these security personnel still with you today?
Jerry has gone on to somewhere else. Jerry passed away.
Oh.
From cancer. So
Yikes.
Jerry made his exit. But the majority of those, I believe all of those fellows are still with me. Yes.
When did Mr. Judge pass away?
Yeah, let's see if we can actually skip up. This is a lot of his testimony. Here's some of the live coverage from the court case. It's going to take a bit more scrubbing. What is with the back chatter? But here we're going to get maybe some juicier stuff.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, you can have a seat. All right.
Yesterday you told us a little bit about the beginning of your relationship with Ms. Heard.
Here we go.
When did Ms. Heard's behavior towards you begin to change?
Perfect. This is what we want to hear.
I believe, as I said yesterday, there was a hint of something with the having to do with
fix the levels.
The boots coming off and breaking routine.
Yeah, that was a really interesting story. You can't hit me back, I'm a girl narrative. Uh-oh, girl boss. Personally, it's amazing hearing men speak of his domestic abuse. I've also experienced it. It's also impossible to see the red flags. Yeah. It is not something people talk about a lot. Like, I have an experience, but it's not extreme and it's not really that crazy. So it's not worth talking about. It's not something like I feel traumatized over. But there's definitely like a massive stigma around men. And then it's largely because men do the thing, right? Like, it's often... like, I think, what is it? Like, cops have a really bad track record for domestic abuse, but generally it's men who are doing it. So it's a real head fuck to kind of like wrap your head around it the other way around. Voss tried to dismiss the whole thing with his divorce paper paragraph about no false allegation. Wait, Voss as in Vosh? Voosh? Loved waiting for any emotion to show from Miss Heard. Ooh, is that what we're all gonna wait for? Like, see if she actually like is just a cold stone girl boss queen? Yeah, that should be interesting. We haven't seen her take a stand yet. It's all been Johnny Depp, like, in his backstory. And this weird story of, like, how they had a routine of her taking off his boots and serving him wine. And then this one time he takes it off himself and she freaks the fuck out. In the UK, the law didn't include men for domestic abuse. Oh my God. Went up to 38% of all domestic cases. Yeah, that's just because there's going to be, like, right? Like, if you hold back, it's going to be like a dam effect. There's a bunch of people who haven't made criminal allegations, and then suddenly the law permits it. There's going to be a huge flood of it. Sociopath. I don't know if we should make that leap. Like, one of the things I read, and it's going to be really hard throughout all of this, is to sort of not interpret their facial reactions, how they're sort of behaving in court. Like, we can't get into their heads. But I know that we should come across some of that audio recording. And yeah, I'm sure I'm still in the, like, I don't know yet, right? My opinions haven't been fully formed. So I think Amber Heard is sussy. I think she's a sussy baka. I don't totally know why. I just know other people have said so. I think I've heard that audio recording that's really damning from her like a couple years ago. We should ignore their profession. You're crazy. You're crazy. Come on. TV is amazing. Come on. Movies? What?
Her attitude, the way that she would begin to speak to me.
Here, let me.
First things started coming up, and I was suddenly just wrong about everything.
There we go. That's better.
If I made a statement about...
Amber was in a Visa movie? The Xiaomi. I mean, in terms of reading to their facial expressions? Oh, yeah.
About something...
That's fair.
...that I had been familiar with, for example, in my work that I'd been chopping away at for a good 30-something years. I was suddenly wrong. And then beyond that, if you tried to explain yourself and correct the problem, the misunderstanding, it would then begin to heighten as Ms. Heard was unable to be wrong. It just didn't
happen. The control is fascinating. Yeah, like that whole, what is it, control via fear kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's very, very. Imagine having your relationship just like poured out into public. Like, they're both gonna have very different narrative of events. So it's gonna be like oil and water for a little while, I think.
She couldn't be wrong.
You watched Hassan's POV? He's really harsh on it. Like, he's very much fallen on onto Johnny Depp's side. Yeah, I think we can maybe pull up a video later, but I'm very much interested in like the original source material, because then I can just form my own opinion straight from the source.
So these little...
Don't worry, Kieran, we don't watch Hassan for his good opinions. The control of her facial expressions? Yeah, I mean, if you're an actress, like, you should know how to control your face pretty well, even if you're feeling emotional, but I don't know, maybe like there's a lot of money. He's not pro Amber Heard. I think he's pro Johnny Depp. I don't know a lot of people who are simping for Amber right now. There's like a community, I think, maybe, of her.
Digs. And it would commence with sort of demeaning, name calling.
Perfect Amber Heard. Found it. So they do exist. Perfect Amber Heard. It's just literally. Oh, I don't think I can show this. Stop.
Berated, sort of to be made a fool of.
Booba.
And those would escalate.
There's a kind of cult community supporting her, which is the same cult community that falsely attacks a bunch of people. Yeah, what is it, the Mark Twain quote? Like, a lie can get around the world twice before the truth has its shoes on. And I think Johnny mentioned it took like 6 years. Like this, what we're watching right now is 6 years in the making. Like that's quite the build-up.
Into a full-scale argument, and in the beginning, as one does, one sticks up for oneself in a debate, as it were, or an argument over something, to try to prove the point. But when it escalates, and then it's hard to explain, but the argument would start here, and then it would roll around and become this circular.
Yeah, imagine having to hold back the truth for 6 years. Absolutely, that's the part I find so intense. Like that's why I'm like the words they're saying in court are like they've thought about these words a lot.
Thing of its own. So you get back to the beginning, essentially, of the argument. Now it's heightened even more, but it's still circular, and there's no way in or out.
Well, you can't lie in court when, especially with like $50 million. Like the lawyers will suss you out. Did Amber Heard have a threesome while she was married? Jesus fucking Christ. From Pink Villa Desk, Mumbai, 2020. There's ASDF, there's something called the Betteridge's Law of Headlines. And it says anytime a headline is written with a question, the answer is no. Because if they did know that it was true, then it wouldn't be a question. So we can pull that up for a laugh, but I don't know how true it is.
If there's a dialogue between two people, both people need to speak. But there was no.
These are some very sussy sources. I got Pink Villa, Daily Mail, Page6.com, Mashable India, Marca. These are the people reporting on this threesome story, so I don't know if it's true.
There was no way to fit a word in. It was a sort of a rapid fire, sort of endless parade of.
I don't think we can watch the threesome scene, everybody. I'm sorry.
Insults and, you know, looking at me like I was a fool, and I just couldn't.
Them wrong.
I was having difficulty in my.
I'm sorry, SDF. One of my cooking streams, if you believe it or not, got slapped with a age restriction. I'm like, what the? Do I have to watch this 3-hour stream and figure out how the hell this got an age restriction? What the fuck? So yeah, we can't watch the threesome sex movie. I'm sorry, SDF.
Mind, of course, and in my heart, dealing with that sort of barrage, and part of that is I was confused as to the fact that whatever her age was at the time of these various arguments, she was mid-20s to late 20s and into 30s. I couldn't understand how I had somehow arrived at where I'd arrived from where I came from in the beginning of my life, and worked for 30 plus years doing these things. It was astounding how wrong I was about everything that I'd experienced within the film industry, or in just life itself.
Yeah, isn't life funny that way?
No, I was sort of not allowed to be right, not allowed to have a voice. So at a certain point, when what enters your mind is, you start to slowly realize that you are in a relationship with your mother, in a sense.
Right.
And I know that sounds
Right. So that's why we learned all about his abusive, cruel mother. That's what's going on here.
perverse and obtuse, but the fact is that some people search for weaknesses in people. That is to say, sensitivities.
Sure.
And when you've told that person your
Hey, I got
life
this button.
And what you've lived through, and what you've been through, just as happens in relationships, the more that became ammunition for Miss Heard to either verbally decimate me or
cooking sausage,
or to
got some really damning stuff. All right, it's getting juicy.
Send me into a kind of tailspin of confusion and depression, and
he goes in. Goes in hard. Nice.
Well, it's not a happy day.
We're here
it's
for
not a happy week. It's not a happy month when you're constantly being told how wrong you are about this or that, what an idiot you are, or anything. It just then it increased, and it became an endless. It became that endless circle. Like, so as it escalated and continued to escalate, I went straight to what I had learned as a youth, which was to remove myself from the situation.
Right.
So that
kind of
it
fall
couldn't
back
continue.
on your old survival.
Because there's only so much your ears can hear and never forget.
I don't know, Lacey. Like, I'm not so sure on it. I think like one of the commentary from a legal analyst that I'm still stuck on was like, okay, let's say she did this thing. Okay, let's say everything Johnny Depp said is true. Is it also true that it caused him to lose the job and all these things? Like, that's a really tough thing to sort of, like, you need some sort of evidence from like Disney saying like, hey, because of recent allegations in the news about you, we're ending your contract. But I doubt like any massive corporation is going to put that in text in an email. So I'm not really sure like how he's going to make the connection from she did me wrong to it cost me a shit ton of money. 50 million.
Yes. So I would remove myself from the situation as I'd done as a youth.
But it's definitely really gripping. Like, it's very rare. I think, what was the last big like testimony about a male survivor story? It was that really beefy actor, the black guy who's bald. It's like Hollywood abuse. How am I forgetting? Terry Crews. That's what his name. Terry Crews. Yeah, I remember Terry Crews had a big thing. It was like really fascinating. Her defense is woeful. The defense she's going for is that her opinion piece never stated his name, thus not being about him. Oh, this should be good. This should get spicy.
As much as possible.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, he's come across really sincere here. Like, it's been kind of jarring to watch Johnny Depp be such a kind of demure personality.
Because I certainly didn't believe that there was any need for these various subjects or arguments to come up and
almost crying,
travel the distance that they did so very quickly, to ramp up so fast. It was like you were pinned to a wall and had to just listen to it and take it. So I found the only way to find any sort of peace.
I think the cross-examination, yeah, that's the stuff that really gets exciting, is the cross-examination. That's when you get the popcorn out.
Was to try to walk away. If she didn't allow me to walk away, there were times when I would just go and lock myself in, the bathroom or anywhere that she couldn't get into.
Sorry, I really have to go pee, but hydration check. If you're thirsty, it means you need water. I'll be right back.
And that happened constantly over the years.
What would happen when the fights would escalate, other than going and hiding in the bathroom?
I'm sorry? What would happen? Well, if they continue to escalate, if I continue to try to present my version or my side of the story, when you're approached in a kind of when you're approached with such anger and hatred, it seemed like pure hatred for me. If I stayed to argue that, eventually I was sure that it was going to escalate into violence, and oftentimes it did. Many times it did.
And when you say violence, what are you referring to specifically?
Miss Heard, in her frustration and in her rage and her anger, she would strike out. She would. It could begin with a slap. It could begin with a shove. It could begin with throwing a TV remote at my head. It could be throwing a glass of wine in my face. But all in all, it was just a constant. There was a built-in list of as I said.
How can they say it's not about him? She was referenced the time she was married to him. Yeah.
My personal experiences, which I gave to Miss Heard, those things were those facts were used against me as weapons, especially when it came to my kids.
Creepy. Don't bring the kids into it.
I did. There was no need for it. There was no need for it. Too many lines were crossed. You couldn't see the lines anymore.
You mentioned that Ms. Heard would use information you gave her against you like a weapon. Can you explain that a little bit?
This is definitely his lawyer.
I mean, I've said this before in various interviews, but certainly in life. If I have one ambition, and ambition for me, when you equate it with Hollywood, has become an ugly word in a sense, because ambition means I want to be famous at any cost. I don't care what for. I just want to be famous.
Yeah.
That's one thing. That's one
type of ambition.
Part of it.
My ambition is to write a poem, one great poem in my life, one solid poem. That's my ambition. One day.
Have hunger, or a need, or a drive to present your work. That to me is the way to go about it. Fame has nothing to do with it. So I was more. I mean, basically.
He sounds pretty uncomfortable.
The only ambition that I've ever had in my life arrived the second that my first child arrived. In the instant, which was to be a good parent, to be a great father, to be the best father I could. And there were several occasions where Ms. Heard would tell me what a bad father I was, and that I had no idea how to parent.
Damn.
And again, it falls in the same category as before. I couldn't understand how in 52 years, or however old I was at the time, how I could be so wrong about everything. I mean, one learns along the road. The result of the road is not important. It's the road that's important, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen in 10 years. We don't know. So the road is what I pay attention to, and paying attention to, trying to spend as much time with my children as possible. Even that would that could send Miss Heard into a monumental tailspin.
Damn.
Where I could hardly ever go and see my kids and spend time with my kids, because she
would freak
had to
out.
have me there at all times.
Oh my God,
for
man.
Her own.
It's like, is he cucked, or is she abusing him? Like, what's going on? I'm sorry. That's really awful. That's really awful. I'm just joking.
So
And that was something that once you realize that that's happening, and then there are hassles
I
between.
think he did actually give a good explanation where it was like, at first you start defending yourself, you start putting up a fight, giving your version, but you get worn down over time until you stop, because you know where that's going to go. You already know like how much trouble it's going to bring about, how much health and fury you're going to incur just by saying like, wait, no, I think you're wrong. I think it's actually this.
The children and her.
I'm playing him at 1.5 at this point. Like, he is talking so fucking slow. Like, we're not going to get through any of this.
The situation starts to get a little more grim and a little more dire.
1.5.
That I was not prepared to take. I would not hear the words, "You're a bad father. You're a terrible father."
Yeah, I think like humans have a really hard time digesting like long, slow burns, like stuff that changes gradually, because like we like to think in, or at least I like to think in switches. You know, something wasn't happening and then it was happening, but like very much what he's describing is like the slow rot, the slow internal rot of the relationship.
Awful father. So
Undermining.
one can only take so much of that before bits of your brain start to just, bits of your brain, bits of your heart begin to, the valve gets shut off.
Wow.
Because you can't hear it anymore. And you know that it's not true. And you know that it's meant as a weapon. It's just to, it's to slice you up. It's to bring you down. It's to demean you. It's to bring you into a place where you start to believe that there's something wrong with you.
Sheesh.
And
is that gaslighting?
there's plenty wrong.
Is he
with me.
describing
There's plenty wrong
gaslighting?
with a lot of people. But in all of these situations, my main goal was to retreat, because I think in life, most important is pick your battles.
Fair.
If there's a battle to be fought that it's
Fair.
grave and important, then that must be dealt with. But small insults and kind of teenage or high school tactics,
You just ignore it.
this bullying, if you will, was becoming too much to take.
Yo, raise your hand if you've ever been bullied.
So why did you stay with Ms. Heard given this type of behavior?
Yeah, there's the classic, like, you should have just left.
That's a very complicated answer. I would.
Complicated. Yeah, that's, I mean, there's the knee-jerk answer, like, cucklord, but obviously the reality is much more. Yeah, I mean, like, 1.5 seems to be doing pretty good. We could even do 1.75, we'll see. But hey, I respect someone who takes the time to say what they mean.
I can only say that I stayed through all that. I'm sure that it's somehow related to my father
Hence all that
remaining
backstory.
stoic.
Yeah.
As my mother would,
You would be relevant.
beat him to death. I'm sure it had a lot to do with having been in a beautiful, wonderful 14, 15-year relationship with Vanessa, the mother of my children. Raising those kids was, there was, I had no interest in being a, you know, the words that they use that I dislike very much, a celebrity or an entertainer or a...
That's funny.
Fame is a strange word because I could never equate it with myself. I pumped gas, I worked construction, I printed T-shirts.
Weird.
I dug in, you know, I had many, many jobs before any of this happened to me. So I've been
It's
able
so funny, he describes his whole career, which, like, at some points in the testimony, demonstrate, like, a real professional craft, like him constructing this character of Captain Jack Sparrow. Like, he's obviously very much pulling from, like, a bunch of different acting experiences and trying to, like, create something new and valuable, and that's very much like a professional act. And at the same time, he's got this whole opinion of, like, oh yeah, I just fell into this, you know, multi-million-dollar career.
to live both sides of that life, of life. I know the very lows, and I know the very highs of where my life has gone, and it's not, I don't, again, it would be pure idiocy for me to sit up here as an actor who's been very, very fortunate over the years, and I can only say it's luck in the sense that someone hands you the ball in the beginning, and you run with it, and you
there it is.
run as far as you can before you get tackled.
Yeah, that sounds pretty humble.
So that's
honestly
what I've always done. But what happens is when the word celebrity, or when you are a, what do they call it, public figure. That's what it is.
Public figure. Yeah, that's where things get fucking spicy.
Celebrity or a public figure. Again,
All
not
bets are
complaining,
off.
but there are things that
Yeah.
that are very uncomfortable, and that is to say,
This actually will play in, if we get the time to cover it, the Libs of TikTok story about like a journalist unmasking who was behind the Libs of TikTok account, and very much on because it had become so popular that the account became something of a matter of public interest. And so now you got journalists knocking on your doors and trying to unearth like who that is. And he's also described something like that. You know, you become such a famous actor, your stuff is out in the wild, people are going to start writing about you.
that at that point anybody can say anything they want to about you.
Yeah,
and that's happened to me over 36
Freedom of speech, everybody. First Amendment.
years or more. That things can be printed in the newspaper that are utterly false. And this is even early on. So this is where that privilege, I suppose, that they call the privilege of celebrity, that's where that sticks a knife in you. Because it's one of those it's one of those situations where your arms are too short to box with God. You know, there are too many of them coming at you.
It's a fun quote.
So yes.
But yeah, that's definitely something that like I relish, is that even if I might not be famous, you guys are liking and following and pushing my stream to hyper popularity. At least I don't have to deal with all that bullshit. That sounds awful. You see some like other Twitch chatters that have to deal with like fame and fortune, and it kind of fucks them up.
I don't know what her motivations were, if there was some species of jealousy or there was some species of maybe just hatred. I don't know. But in any case, the elevation and the escalation of these day-to-day arguments were simply unnecessary. It was not to help the relationship. It did not help the relationship. It wasn't meant to help the relationship. It was meant to feed her
ego,
need for
drama,
conflict. She has a need for conflict. She has a need for violence.
Yikes!
It erupts out of nowhere, and the only thing I learned to do with it is exactly what I did as a child: retreat, just take a step back. Which I told her, we need to remove ourselves from each other, even for an hour, a day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you fall back on old survival techniques, and as a kid, like what are you gonna do? Argue with your abusive mom? You know, no, you're definitely gonna retreat.
Anything, because this can't go on. No one can live like this, you know. But why did I stay? I stayed, I suppose, because my father stayed. I suppose because I had been in that relationship with Vanessa.
So that like hour of testimony we watched to give that backstory was so that he could say that sentence. I stayed because my father stayed. Like that sentence doesn't make sense without like us hearing about his backstory, about his mom doing the abuse and his dad being stoic and staying for as long as he could, all that jazz. So like, yeah, I knew it was going somewhere. I knew there was a reason for all that testimony. Too much money's on the line.
And that was lost. And I didn't want to fail. I wanted to try to make it work. I thought maybe I could help her. I thought maybe I can
fix
bring her around.
I can fix her, chat. I can do it.
Because the Amber Heard that I knew for the first year and a half was not this suddenly this opponent. It wasn't my girl. It was she had become my opponent, and everything that I did just didn't fit her. It wasn't. She didn't accept it. So I stayed because, of course, I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to hurt anyone, especially Miss Heard. I didn't want to break her heart. I remember very well that when my father left and my mother, Betty Sue, had that first attempt at suicide that I woke up to, and that visual in my head, and that was a direct result of my father's leaving. Ms. Heard had spoken of suicide on a couple of occasions, so that also becomes a factor. That's also something that always lives in the back of your brain, and that you fear. Because when I would leave, sometimes, many times when I would try to leave, she would, stop me at the elevator with the security guards crying, screaming, you know, I can't live without you. I'm gonna die. But you had to get out. There were even a couple of times when I did escape and I got to my house, arrived at my house in Sweetser, and then 5 minutes later she would arrive in the I don't know what car she was driving at the time, but she would arrive in her nightgown, screaming in the parking lot in front of my house, screaming to high heavens. It'd be 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. It was ludicrous. It was out of control. It was uncontrollable.
Right.
Did there come a time when you and Miss Heard started recording your arguments?
Yes.
You know your relationship's on the rocks when you're bringing a fucking, recorder to the dinner table. Hi, honey. Click. How was your day?
In fact, I was the first person of the two of us to record conversations.
Right.
And it was for this reason.
That's dicey, man. You know something's fucked up, like when you start recording, like you're questioning your judgment, questioning reality. Like, did I hear that shit? Is that really as crazy as I thought it was? What the fuck?
We would have been talking the night before or arguing the night before, and she would say something. There would be these demeaning, berating insults. There would be these jabs. There would be anything to make me feel small and like nothing. So what I thought was, I'm going to record the conversation, and I told her this.
So many manipulative and toxic behaviors, masses love and devotion. I think it's to do with if a man and woman both accuse each other, you're more likely to believe the woman. The recording is security for a lot of men, I think. I think that's just something that's because of stats. It's just because men do the dirt. They're usually doing the dirt. And so, like, we generally think, like, yeah, there's a bias there because usually that's what is the old joke? Like, men fear that women will laugh about them and ridicule them, and women fear that men will kill them. Like, I think that's the joke. Recording each other seems a bit dramatic. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I think it's because it's a reality, like a sanity check at that point, because you do love and trust the person, but they're saying things that conflict with how you love and trust yourself. So, gosh, when your self-esteem is coming both from yourself and from your partner, which is, normal and based and cool, but they're starting to say some stuff that's like undermining how you think about yourself. I don't know, maybe they're right. Maybe they're just seeing something you can't. Maybe there's a little bit of, and you record it to see if maybe it sounds the same. He should have streamed it live. Yeah, chat's just like, do a backflip. Tell her she's ugly. Like that's... Yeah, no, chat is, y'all have been actually very lovely and sweet. Very, very healthy and wonderful YouTube chat. I'm honestly loving it. Twitch usually is more wholesome than YouTube, but today, yeah, lifestyles of the rich and famous. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to record. I'm going to get my phone and I'm going to record our conversation.
Oh, you
Because I want you to hear what you've said to me tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, there's your answer, Lacey Love. Like, he's actually doing this in trying to get her to realize, to convince someone they're hearing things or they're crazy. Yeah, that's definitely the, like, origins of gaslighting. It's definitely within a romantic relationship and, like, getting them to question their own sanity. And like, you're at the point of, like, recording. It's like he's already talked to her, like, yo, you can't talk to me this way. You shouldn't be doing that. And now he's like, wait, can you, like, listen to yourself and actually think you're in the right here? And guess what?
Deny having said those things. What are you talking about? It was surreal. She had completely denied things.
There you go. It was surreal. There's the gaslighting.
She said directly to my...
Allegedly.
My face in a heated and volatile way. And she denied it, so I went to her and I said, I'm going to record us. And I did, and we recorded the conversation, which, when she was on tape...
she changed.
The first time, it escalated a bit, but she was...
No, not yet, Lacey. I haven't heard the recordings for years. So I remember there's, like, one that really went viral a couple years ago when this was started bubbling up through the court system. But I haven't given it a fresh listen, so I'm looking forward to that, yeah.
Well, it was clear that she was performing for the tape. because it was being recorded. So
That's impossible. How can an actress perform for a tape? What are you talking about, Johnny? That's crazy.
that was another clue that something was slightly rotten in the state of Denmark, as it were.
What did Ms. Heard say to you about you recording the conversations between you and her?
I mean, initially she said, sure, go ahead.
Did that ever change?
No, then
Well, you said
she
initially.
then she started recording. But,
They will play them as evidence? Yeah, almost
surreptitious.
certainly. Almost certainly.
Without
I think if Johnny didn't play them, then Amber would try to get them played. Like, I mean, that's like pretty vital evidence to the case. I can't imagine it just isn't brought up.
without telling me that she was recording something, which is fine, but not so fine, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not so fine.
Even in those tapes, it never took me to a place where I would go switch into some other entity, which is, as she has used the term, monster.
Whoa.
Never switched to violence. Violence was unnecessary.
Her only valuable recording is of him saying he'd headbutt her, but the story of that is super sus. Huh.
Why would you hit someone to make them agree with you? I don't think it works.
Oh boy, we're going
Mr. Depp,
into
you
it,
mentioned
aren't
the
we?
term monster, and I think we heard about that in the opening statements. What does the term monster mean to you?
Well, the term monster means to me, in the
person.
beginning, she had used a different word to explain the same thing, and she would use the word demons. That my demons were coming out. That she had noticed.
Currently, I am the content demon. I am currently sucking up this content and turning it into glib entertainment for y'all.
There was a great change in my attitude or my
I've seen a video recording she made of him, and he's a drunken fool on it. So you can see how the volatile relationship became abusive while they both abused alcohol and drugs. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to come up. Is like, well, there's two ways to read that. Like, you can be abusing drugs and not abusing your partner, right? Like that can be something that's happening, right? Like somebody's getting kind of like high, and you're their partner, and you're like, yo, we actually have to like go home. Can you please like fucking sober up? But in terms of addiction, he was addicted to opiates. Oh damn. I mean, he seems pretty fucking sober right now. He seems stone cold sober.
aggressive nature. Or she would say that the demons had come out and they had control of me and that sort of thing. I don't remember exactly how monster came out, but that word stuck and it stayed, well, until this day. What I believe the monster was, in Ms. Heard's mind, was her intense,
Objection, Your Honor. His belief about what monster meant in Ms. Heard's mind is not relevant. There's no foundation.
Let me ask a different question.
I'm stating the objection.
Yeah.
When you used the
good
term
objection.
monster, what were you referring to in your conversations with Ms. Heard?
Amber was taking coke. Oh Jesus. Oh Jesus. Coke and shrooms. What?
When I used the term monster with Ms. Heard, I was placating. If she had referred to me as being a monster, there was no way that I was going to sit there and go through a 45-minute argument about, you're a monster. No, I'm not. You're a monster. No, I'm not. You're a monster. No, I'm not.
Yeah, of course.
It was an impossibility. So what do? You accept her vernacular. You accept the word that she uses, and then you use that word to placate her, so that it would at least calm part of the aggression. It would.
Yeah, and that's him being like, okay, I'm a monster. Like that's what he's explaining.
It would lessen the attacks. So
You want me to
explaining
be
the
a
monster,
monster? I'm a monster.
was for me. I mean, she had told me many times that the monster was only me when I was using drugs and alcohol. But even when I was stone cold sober off of alcohol and substances aside from my meds. The term the monster was still there. When she accused me of being high on cocaine or drinking like a some sort of
pirate,
like drinking like I was some kind of 19th century sailor. It's
so he makes the joke.
That was the word she clung to describe. But
that's funny.
It was in her mind, not mine.
How did your relationship with Ms. Heard affect your substance use?
Well, for example, when we were on the road, when you're traveling from, if you're on a press tour, or if you're making a film and you're staying in hotels or this or that, I would always have to get a different, or we would always have to book an extra room
that
I was able to escape to, so I didn't have to lock myself in another bathroom.
Crazy, man.
It breaks you down. The constant haranguing breaks you down.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a part of you that says, listen, if I'm going to be accused of this, might as well just do it. But it never exceeded, it never, my substance abuse or use, the alcohol that I used or drank was, again, purely, it's that little boy who didn't want to hear or didn't want to feel the pain of his mother turning him into some kind of ball of insecurity and pain.
Holy shit. This guy,
yes.
No offense, but this guy has plumbed the depths of his soul. Like, he is pretty accurately saying why he does or did drugs, as a way to escape, a way to sort of this girlfriend who he thinks he's dating his mom or whatever, who's cruel and abusive towards him, and he's trying to escape it and stuff. It's pretty deep introspection. I don't know.
I was more inspired by Ms. Heard to reach out for a numbing agent.
I missed some comments.
Because of
I wouldn't be surprised how volatile his comments are than the one I watched with JD. Just seemed drunk, not violent, verbally or physically. He was so against using opiates again because of his previous addiction that he refused any of these pain relief. Yeah, because that's how they fucking get you. Yeah, I can't wait to find out about this finger stuff, what's going on there. No, I haven't seen the doctor's notes at all, but I know that this finger story is really messed up, so I'm super curious about how that plays.
Because of the constant clashes, because of maybe a few days here and there, but there wasn't a day that you'd wake up and you'd expect something was going to hit the fan, and pretty much like clockwork, it did.
That's intense.
So,
then.
yes,
Yo, how's it going, Conjured? How you doing?
Something to
Welcome
distance
to the
me and distance my heart from those verbal.
He refused meds for pain during detox. He did it like cold turkey. That's off of opiates. Holy fuck, man.
Attacks. I had to have something to be able to maintain me.
Doing all right. We had a winter storm in Montreal. It was pretty intense, and I'm done school, so I'm feeling much more relaxed. I think I'm going to change up my schedule, though. I can't find the motivation to stream Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm just too exhausted. And I think I might change it just to Thursday to Sunday, 7 a.m. It'll be a nice, clean, easy to understand schedule.
And I'm afraid for
I'm doing good.
A while because of placation, because I didn't want to rock the boat, as it were. Again, you pick your battles. So placation seemed the best route if I was unable to escape her clutches.
Her clutches.
How, if at all, did Ms. Heard try to support you in abstaining from the drugs and alcohol as she requested?
Well, verbally, and she had been quite clear verbally and pretty bullish and brutish about.
So Depp is suing her for defamation, or is there more? They're suing each other, Conjured. So she put out an article where she alleged she was a victim of domestic abuse. Did not name Johnny Depp, but it was pretty clear like, who else could she be talking about? He's alleging that this caused him to lose out on the Pirates of Caribbean franchise and a bunch of other things. So he sued her for 50 mil, and then she countersued for like $100 million or 150 million. And now we're sort of hearing all of it come out in court case. This is like 6 years in the making. Johnny Depp is very much coming with receipts, I imagine. He's like, this is the first time he's spoken about it in 6 years. So the whole world gets to kind of look in on this relationship. And because it's kind of like a he said, she said situation, it's going to be very sticky, very, very tough to parse. But there's apparently some damning evidence already out in the public record against Amber Heard. And it will be interesting to see her take the stand, especially after seeing Johnny take the stand, who's very different than how I imagined him, you know.
Wanting me to, telling me that I needed to stop drinking. But drinking was basically drinking wine with her.
It's just a really hard thing to digest, Conjured. Like, I understand that gut instinct, and I'm with you on it. It's just like, how do you get to the bottom of it? Like, how do you actually, like, discover that and get it? Like, what's the evidence you need to confirm that story? It's really tough. It's really tough. Like, even if you simp really hard for Johnny Depp, like, I don't have a lot of hope that he's gonna, like, get it across. The hearsay objection is that both their testimonies are incredibly anecdotal. Yeah, exactly. It's like stuff that they said. The only real evidence we have that, like, something was really serious and bad is, like, those audio recordings, but that still doesn't get you across the line of damages, like millions of dollars in damages. So that's the part. I want to see them try to cross that bridge. Yeah.
And
yeah, Ferry, I think, like, other viewers who have seen her testimony have some pretty harsh opinions for her. So I'm curious to see how she plays it, because he's done a really good job, fantastic job. I mean, he's talking way too slowly, but, you know, he's definitely choosing his words.
I suppose maybe from youth, I don't know, but I've always had a pretty high tolerance for alcohol, especially it's not spirits, you know. I had a pretty good tolerance for alcohol, substances, and things of that nature. But there was no. I had no. I've worked with therapists, drug counselors, who have actually said
thanks for the
words to
follow.
because I wanted to know.
Thanks for the follow, Conjured. Nice.
I wanted to know. Am I an alcoholic? Am I an alcoholic? Or is this just the same thing that I did as a kid?
Nah, you're an alcoholic, my guy. We're basically all alcoholics if you drink on the reg.
When I took my mom's nerve pill, do I have a drinking problem? And it essentially came down to this. Do you have a drinking problem, Johnny?
Objection calls for hearsay. What the doctors
Hearsay?
told him.
I'm not sure he's saying what the doctors told him.
I think that's
what?
what's about to be testified to.
Oh, if you can make that clear, I guess.
Let me ask you a different question, Mr. Depp.
Yes. Let's let him object to another one.
How often would Miss Heard drink in your presence while you were in a relationship?
Always. Well, yeah.
I mean, she used to serve him a glass of wine.
Miss Heard drank. She took a shine to a very nice Spanish wine called Vega Sicilia. She and all her friends did.
Vegas Sicilia. What does
Yeah,
that
the wine
cost?
would come out, and Miss Heard could very easily drink 2 bottles of wine per night.
Oh my God! It's an $830 bottle of wine, Mike. Oh my God! 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 She was drinking a $1,000 bottle of wine, sometimes 2 of them. I'm having a hard time digesting that.
Not a problem.
Jesus.
What I found strange was when I did get sober from the I was off the opiates that I had been addicted to prior to a year or so before, a couple of years before. She asked me if I would stop drinking to save the relationship, of course.
Right.
I stopped drinking, and I always found it odd that
She didn't have to?
in support of me not drinking, that she might stop drinking. But she did not. She continued.
Right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I didn't make a big deal about it. In fact, I would
I mean, that makes it hard.
I would open her wine, I would pour her a glass. And
What the fuck?
that went on for
What is happening?
many, many months, you know, in my sobriety. Like I said, I think I was sober for around 18 months. Then there was a time when I was asked to, and I'd been off of alcohol, I'd been off of drugs, everything, except for the medication that I'm prescribed. I had to go to London to give a Lifetime Achievement Award to a dear old friend who was an elderly man, great actor called, his name's Christopher Lee, and he was a dear friend. And I was surprised, he was being surprised by my showing up on stage. I'd just flown in from the States, and he was surprised by.
He had to have such an awful relationship listening to his experiences. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I'm interested in it, is because, like, we see these celebrities, we feel like we know them, we obviously don't. It's clearly a parasocial relationship. And then we find out not only they're human, they're definitely fucking human. Like, not sure if sobriety is a virtue, but for people who are privy to addiction, it might be. Yeah, absolutely. Because, like, sobriety is, like, a virtue when the addiction is starting to affect your life. And if you have a partner saying, like, hey, like, I think your addiction is starting to affect our lives, then yeah, all of a sudden sobriety is a virtue. And I don't see how it couldn't be. Like, there's a reason we think of, like, drugs as, like, vice or whatever, is because people can do some pretty crazy shit off it. But I'm not justifying the war on drugs, let's be clear.
By me arriving to give him this award, and Christopher came up and accepted the award. We walked, they brought us backstage to this beautiful library where I was with Christopher and his
or
wife.
just booze? I don't know yet. I don't know. Like, she's gonna make some allegations. I think that he was all over the place, like coke and mushrooms and acid, the whole 9 yards. But from what we've heard so far, she just drinks $1,000. She just has a glass of wine that's $250. I can work for several days, and not make enough for that fucking.
And a waiter came up and had 3 glasses of champagne. And Christopher handed one to his wife, he handed one to me, and then he had the other. And there was a photographer there. And the glass came up to toast. And I just, in my head, I thought, it's just champagne, you know, a little bit tink to toast Christopher and his Lifetime Achievement Award. And so I'd had half a glass of champagne with Christopher Lee and his wife. After that, immediately after that award ceremony, I went to pick up Miss Heard and take her to dinner at a restaurant. And I told her that I'd had a half a glass of champagne with Christopher. And I thought, listen, it's
that's pretty.
It's not like, you know, you're sitting in a pub guzzling pints
find
of
out
snake
about that.
bites or Guinness or doing shots of Jägermeister. Or it wasn't even.
When do we find out about her shitting the bed? That's what I want to find out. Sorry, I'm obviously a degenerate.
At that point, it wasn't even for need to bury feelings or emotions. It was literally
like a celebration,
a joyous occasion for Christopher. And I said to her, I enjoyed it. You know, it gave me the opportunity to enjoy the actual champagne, the drink.
Yeah.
And my appreciation for wine and winemaking, and that I've been fascinated with for years and years. And
there's some crazy shit coming up.
I saw nothing wrong in it, and I said I'd like to have a glass of champagne.
Unfortunately,
and she was sitting there with it.
Court cases go on forever. I hope Amber wins, man. Amber don't deserve this. Oh, really, Stealth? You're on Amber's side? Okay, that's interesting. I'm still in the, like, forming my opinion phase, but so far, we've only really heard from Johnny so far this stream, and he's been pretty demure, and just because she's hot, okay, Stealth, like, cool it, chill the fuck out.
Glass of wine, and
she claimed it was the dogs, but the maid who was with him for years and years said she would know the difference between human fecal matter and their tiny dog's feces. How can anyone take Amber's side? Because she's hot, Kieran. Duh. Clearly.
In the restaurant, and she absolutely lost it and got up and stormed to the ladies' room.
There's a photo going around.
And I told my security and driver, I said, I think we have to go. We're going to have to leave. So we left the restaurant, and
And hey, if we could have covered the Ottawa protests with both pro and anti-freedom lovers in the chat, we can handle one pro Amber Heard chatter.
Went home. And the
She
mere
has
suggestion of
61,000
me
looks.
sipping a glass of champagne or having 1 glass or 2 glasses of wine, she went apoplectic.
This is a civil case? We're also deciding this in the court of public opinion. So, the public has some dog shit opinions sometimes.
I was weak. I was a complete mess. I was an alcoholic. I was going to ruin everything. Your kids are not proud of you. They can't stand what you're doing to yourself. So at that point, I said to her, "Okay, listen. How about this? You want to support me not drinking? I've never asked you this before. How about you stop drinking? How about you get sobriety and share the sobriety with me?
Crazy.
To support me and help me through this."
Can't do that.
What did she say to that?
No.
No, I mean, she's got like $10. She's got $10,000 worth of wine that needs to be drunk. Yo, if I spent 10 grand on wine, sorry, like that's, I'm gonna drink it. Like I'll go be sober after, I guess.
No. She said no.
This is a civil case. Allegations open it up to a criminal investigation? Really? Wait, due to the police supporting Depp. Wait, what do you mean about that, the police supporting Depp?
She said she didn't have a problem. But I've never had a physical addiction to alcohol. I don't.
How often have you seen Ms. Heard use other illicit drugs in your presence?
Several times.
And what drugs were those?
And anyways, ASDF, that was last stream. If you want to watch a stream about someone taking a poop to the lab, like, that was the last stream about mystery meat. Like, somebody had, like, you can go watch it. It's stupid.
Well, she was always quite fond of it.
If they find it credible, Kieran, like, the police might watch this and be like, yeah, there's no there. There's nothing actionable.
MDMA, which is ecstasy. And mushrooms. And she had some medications that she was on already that were, one in particular was quite a high velocity, speed, if you will. Called, I don't know if I can say the name. Am I allowed to say the name? It doesn't matter.
That's not necessary.
Methamphetamine?
How often did
we
you see
are
Ms. Heard?
live with the next, this is today? Looks like he's just
Which
sitting
exhibit?
down now. 1458, Your Honor. Can you hear that? Okay.
1458. All right. With
Not
the
really,
dash.
eh?
All right. That's already been entered in evidence. We'll
Wow,
just
it's already maxed.
take a copy of it. Thank you. Anything else?
We have the thumb drive with the
with
additional.
the knife pictures on it for me, 92 and 93. Great. Thank you. All right.
Give me a sec on the audio.
Take any evidence you have. Perfect. All right. Anything further? All right. We're ready for the jury.
So I used to have a thing that boosted the sound. Oh, you know what we're gonna have to deal with too is like his extremely slow speech. Oh God. Yeah, here we go. Okay, that should help with the audio. And yeah, while we're waiting, give a like, follow.
Good morning,
subscribe,
ladies and gentlemen. You
that
can have a
helps us with the channel.
seat.
Tell a friend if you've
All
already
right.
liked and subscribed. Get someone else you think might be interested to jump in. Yeah, we're trying to grow the stream. I'm trying to be famous, like Johnny Depp, so I can have $50 million defamation suits if someone says bad words about me in the press. Audio sounds good? Nice. Poggers.
Morning, Mr. Depp.
Morning, Mr. Roddenberry.
That's better. That's better.
Yes, 2 days ago, when you first took the stand, you discussed your upbringing and some of the abuse that you suffered at the hands of your mother. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And you testified how she abused you physically, right?
Yes, sir.
Throwing things at you, hitting you.
Yeah, there was quite a, various forms of physical abuse.
And she abused you verbally by insulting you and your siblings, right?
Yes, she did.
And you testified that sometimes that verbal abuse, that emotional abuse was worse than the beatings, right? Do you remember that?
As a child, it has more of an opportunity to plant itself in your head.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'd agree that abuse can take many forms. It can be physical, can be verbal, can be emotional, right?
Indeed.
Sure.
And you testified that your dad wasn't abusive, but that you saw him punch walls when he was in an argument with your mother sometimes, right?
Broke his hand.
Excuse me.
Apparently.
I witnessed my father, the only reaction that would be called a physical reaction from the abuse he was very stoically taking from my mother.
We might have skipped over some of the evidence just because there's like too much stuff for me to cover in so little time. Like the last couple of videos were like 6-7 hours long. So yeah, I think we might have missed some evidence at this point.
I saw him
Might have to
maybe
pull it up
twice,
during quiet
3
moments.
times. Punch a wall once.
Once he punched you in the face and knocked you down, didn't he?
Wait, what?
Yes, when I was
Damn.
15 years old. This was just before I'd dropped out of high school. One morning, yes, in my mind, I was done with school. So he had asked me to, I believe it was something, it was very, he asked me to take the dog for a walk or something. Or take out the garbage, something menial, something strange. And I just said, no. And he...
Cold cocked you?
And he just gave me a quick shot.
What the fuck?
Pretty hefty. And it rattled my head. It rattled the cage, you know,
Sure.
birds and stuff. Sure.
So the jury hadn't heard about that before. When he
Yeah.
punched you in the face, it actually knocked you to the ground. And then when you got up, you were all too happy to take care of what he wanted you to take care of, right?
I was excited to take care of it at that
Right.
point.
And yesterday, I believe that you testified, why would you hit someone to make them agree with you? It doesn't work. You gave that testimony yesterday, didn't you?
Yes.
That's fair.
Now, you try to conduct yourself as a gentleman, right?
Wait, what's the point between those two questions?
And you think that you live up to the standards of a Southern gentleman, right?
Sure.
That was essentially, you know, when you have deep roots in the South, in Kentucky and such.
Sounds like a Kentucky boy.
It's not just your parents, your father, your mother, it's your grandparents, it's your uncles, it's your aunts, it's this, it's that. It's a...
Leading questions? I don't think so.
Yes, raised to be a Southern gentleman, that is to say, when chivalry was still alive and allowed.
Right.
The way he's responding to it means like he's pulling from testimony.
And you think you live up to the standards of a Southern gentleman, correct?
Yeah.
I believe I do.
Yeah.
I
Confirming what
certainly
you've mentioned before.
I've done my best all my life.
Yeah.
Paul Bettany's a good friend that you've done drugs with, right?
That's a strange question.
That is a strange question.
Paul Bettany is a good friend. Yes.
You've done drugs with him?
Yes, I have.
Cocaine, right?
Cocaine, yes.
Alcohol?
Wild.
Alcohol, yes.
Pills, including Xanax and Adderall, right?
And you think?
That I'm not so sure of.
I think it's because
Okay.
he's referring to previous testimony. And you think this because you said it, right? Rather than saying, you said this before,
Where's he going?
you're confirming you think this now. Oh god, this is already very, very spicy. So this is a friend that you
Your
did
Honor, may we
drugs
approach?
with.
I just want to discuss one thing with you.
Okay.
Ms. Myers.
What a crazy question. What a good reaction. That's those are two separate things. We are friends. We do friend things. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you do drugs with your friends. I don't know. Crazy thought, I know. Some of us are not just like doing drugs on our own kind of thing. But yeah, already off to a good start. Already off to a good start. It's like the first couple questions and you have to like review. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how well this is gonna go for Amber. It's off to a pretty awkward start. I don't know. What do you think? Is Johnny a Southern gentleman? Okay. Looks like we're back on.
Thank you.
Ooh, he's got some shades on. Looks like he was provided with some written...
Mr. Depp, you remember giving testimony in the trial in the UK, correct?
Yes.
And you gave that testimony under oath, right?
Yes.
You gave quite a bit of testimony in that trial, right?
Southern gentleman sounds awful. I'm picturing guns and cowboy hat.
Judge that myself. It felt like a lot.
Okay, well, let's...
No, I think it's more like you protect the weak, you're noble and righteous, you're stoic, that kind of stuff.
12
Family's
of the
important.
document.
Know where you come from.
4 transcript
Oh, I
pages.
see page 12 of the document, certainly.
Yes, sir.
Like, I think an insult in the South is all hat, no cattle. And that really speaks to, like, this image of a Southern gentleman, someone who doesn't matter how big his hat is, matters how many cattle he can handle.
And
12 of the document, you say?
yes, in the lower left corner, there's a page 45. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you see that on the bottom of that page, there's a discussion of Paul Bettany and the drugs that you did together. And there was a question. The question is, any sort of pills? And your answer is yes. There could have been Xanax, or if he asked for Xanax or Adderall, whatever, I would, of course, give it to him. Question, so you would supply Paul Bettany with whatever medication or controlled drugs he asked for, is that right? Answer, if he was feeling anxious or if he was feeling unpleasant, I would give him what he asked for. Question, would you give him a Xanax? Answer, yes. Did I read that right?
You certainly did, yes, sir.
Got him.
And you shared, the two of you shared an enjoyment of controlled drugs or alcohol at that time, right?
An enjoyment. Y'all did drugs, right?
The two of us were making a film together.
With respect, sir, that wasn't my question. My question was, the two of you shared an enjoyment of controlled drugs and alcohol at that time. Yes or no?
At times.
Yes. And Ms. Heard was quite adamant that you didn't drink anymore and that you should stop using recreational drugs, right?
Right.
Oh, yes.
And she didn't like it when you were high on drugs or drunk on alcohol, right?
She didn't like it when it was her perception that I was high on drugs. Her perception's quite different than the truth.
Right.
And that's what we're after, is the truth. Let's turn to, can you pull up Exhibit 178, please, Michelle?
Is that Defendant's 178 or?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, that's all right, I just want to make sure.
Oh.
Mr. Depp.
Objection, Your Honor.
Wait, why?
Can we approach, please?
No. I think this is part of the reason why it might be good to like watch it one day late, is because you can kind of skip through some of the stuff. When you watch it live, like you really are kind of stuck watching the trial take place in like slow motion. Not always ideal. Yeah. We just gotta kind of wait it out. That being said, I really do have to get my day started beyond the stream. So I think this is a good spot for me to call it. I'm gonna start my day job. Yeah. So I'm gonna see you later. Bye everyone.